Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to The Hash, where we break down the latest and greatest in crypto and culture. My name is Naomi Brockwell, and we have Will Foxley, Jen Sanasie, Ben Powers, and Zack Seward. Welcome to the show, guys. We will dive straight in talking about Binance news. So, Zack, what have we got there? No, Ben, I think that you're taking this one.
Ben, you got it, Ben.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So yesterday, Changpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, floated the idea that they're actually looking for a potential replacement for him, and ideally somebody with a strong regulatory background. This comes amid a kind of roiling sea of regulatory scrutiny that Binance is going through. And, on top of this news, there was also news yesterday that Binance was going to lower its withdrawals that were allowed on a daily basis from 2 Bitcoin to 0.06 Bitcoin for accounts that had only passed a basic verification. So that is a large decrease. And this is a whole slew of information and rapid developments happening as regulators are looking more closely at crypto. But Naomi, I want to get your initial thoughts on this one.
I think that it's super interesting how regulated they're going now, because Binance has always been kind of the go-to for people around the world. We know that a lot of people use VPNs to access it because it's great. It really has, the most assets on there, and it's a lot of liquidity, and it's, very trustworthy. They've done a great job protecting consumer funds, and they seem to have gotten away with a lot. But ever since they launched their stocks that are tokenized, it seems that regulators are just like, no, that is one step too far and are cracking down. And now they seem to be doing this 180 where they're completely pivoting and saying, okay, let's, instead of, being jurisdictionless and being all around the world, we're going to have jurisdictions everywhere and be completely regulated in those places. So that's super interesting. At the start of the month, we heard from the UK that they're looking for, the UK version of Brian Brooks. So someone who has an ex-regulator background and can help maybe push them further towards this regulated path. So it does seem that now they're looking for this global Brian Brooks for Binance. So we're just going to have new Brian Brookses populated all over the place. So it's just a very interesting path that they're taking there. But Zack, I'll throw to you. What are your thoughts on all this?
I don't know, man. It's really interesting to see this Binance thing unfold the way it has. They are certainly trying to get their house in order, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can do that while still appealing to their customer base in a way that has brought them to the point where they are as the largest crypto exchange by volume in the world. So whether those two things are mutually exclusive, regulatory compliance and addictive, sticky, great user experience, we're going to have to wait and see. But it's really interesting to see this this discussion ramp up to the point where CZ is out there saying, hey, I'm happy to step down. I'm happy to take the bullet on this one if I can find someone a little bit more buttoned up to run this big global behemoth. So super interesting. These remarks came at a press conference. CoinDesk was there. A bunch of other outlets were there. Clearly they're trying to get this message out there that, hey, global regulators, we hear you. We're taking you seriously. Be our friends again. So it's interesting to see this happen the way it did. I think it was Jen. Did you have something to say, or because I saw Will do it too? But I'll toss it to Jen.
I did. So I'll go very quickly, and then I'll toss it off to Will. First, I don't think I've mentioned on the show that CZ is Canadian. Chinese Canadian.
Oh my goodness!
I knew that was coming.
Oh my goodness!
Another topic. That's on you, Zack.
Wow.
This is on you.
That's my bad.
And I just want to say it takes a really aware CEO to recognize when there are external and internal factors that are preventing them from doing the job that they set out to do. And so I applaud CZ for having that awareness. And I mean, everything that Binance has done has always had their end user at the forefront, right? And so I think complying with regulators is just going to make that better user experience for people who are on the platform. It was surprising to me, though, when I was reading this article, to hear that they said that regulators may not understand what they are doing. So they are going to take a more traditional structure so that regulators can understand who they are and what they do, which is kind of sad. It's like I've said this before, we're taking a few steps forward and a few back, but hopefully this will put them in a good position to reach some of the goals that they set out for the future. But Will, I will kick it off to you to take us to the end of this segment.
Yeah, two things are really interesting to me here before I throw it over to Naomi for closing thoughts. BitMEX, this happened to them basically last year. We already saw that they tried to do some things. They tried to kowtow to regulators. They started adding KYC to the platform. They started limiting some options on the platform. Didn't matter. October of last year, bunch of stuff went out the door for them. Arthur Hayes had to, I don't know if he's in prison right now or in jail right now. At least he's on a bail. So I think this story has already been played out before, and we can look to that as an example of what could happen for Binance. That's like worst case scenario. Another interesting thing about this is that the US is like leading all this. We always talk about like G7 and G20 nations that are involved in kind of deciding where global financial regulations go. But the US is only becoming interested in this right now. We saw that yesterday on Capitol Hill, talking with Elizabeth Warren, her calling everyone in crypto shadowy coders and miners. Pretty hysterical from one perspective, but also pretty terrifying the fact that they don't understand this. And now they're going after Binance, top dog in the market, and really trying to shut it down. So interesting to see the US kind of taking all the actions, and then all these other countries are following up, like Japan and the UK and Thailand, who have already issued warnings against Binance.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Will. And I'll add on to that. The long arm of the US law reaches far and wide. As we know, Binance is not available to US residents, to US citizens. They block the IP addresses, and yet America is, apparently going after them. I mean, we've, as you said, seen how this played out with BitMEX, and it's kind of crazy and shocking to me that the world condones this. But I will say that hopefully, this furthers the push towards decentralized exchanges. It's very clear that all of these exchanges eventually have to kowtow. And so I'm very optimistic about the future of permissionless systems, because that really is the future of cryptocurrency. But let's change track here. And now I'm going to throw to Zack.
Thanks. I'll do it. I got it. We're going to talk about Lolly. Lolly, which is the Bitcoin rewards startup, raised a $10 million Series A round. And involved in that round were a bunch of influencers from social media and stuff. Logan Paul was there. I think there was like a TikTok house thing involved. All sorts of good folks involved in this $10 million funding round. I thought notably the thing that was interesting though was that they wanted to sort of focus on the gaming community as a venue for future growth. Again, this is like a little extension that lives in your browser. So you'll go buy shoes or go buy a video game. You get a couple of Satoshis for your trouble, and you accumulate a Bitcoin balance when otherwise you wouldn't necessarily have even had any Bitcoin to play with. So definitely a mainstream adoption, a mainstream gateway type deal. I'm going to kick this to you, Will. What's your take on this sort of like influencer video game mashup as it relates to Bitcoin and the mainstream?
It's definitely on brand for Lolly, which has been in the space for a while, and they've kind of clung to that influencer vibe, I think, which has been very successful for them. I think it's their third raise in the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. Could be just their second. But their platform makes a lot of sense. If you want to go to these retailers and buy something and you want to get a little cash back, Bitcoin's the easy option for doing that, and just stack some sats, as they say, via their platform. Honey is like the equivalent, I guess, that a lot of people talk about, but you only get it back in fiat. So if you're a Bitcoiner, this is kind of the way to go to it. Naomi, what do you think about this whole project? Like sats back, all that. Is it interesting? Is it a way to kind of get mainstream adoption? Because typically when we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about Bitcoin savings, and they kind of have like an aspect of that, but it's also used for payments, like when you're buying things on Walmart or pets.com or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think it's super interesting. I've been following Lolly for a while. It's just a great bridge. If you have people who've never used cryptocurrency before, and they don't, there's so many steps you have to go through. You have to set up a wallet, and you have to figure out like where's the best place to buy it, and figure out, choose between fees and all of this stuff. Like it's very complicated and daunting for people. So the fact that Lolly's coming along and saying you don't really have to worry about all of these fee structures, just like buy things how you usually would, but just have this plugin and you will get Bitcoin. I think that that's very smart. Obviously, like it's a certain demographic. I think that this is great for people who are new to the space. This is a great onboarding platform, but I'm grateful that something like this exists. But Zack, I'll throw it to you.
I'll do a bounce pass back to Jen because I saw her hand up. Jen, what do you got?
Don't catch it. Oh my God, I went the wrong way. Like
Sports
I
can't.
Ready? Go.
Bravo, everybody. Perfect coordination.
I think this is really interesting. I mean, we're looking at Lolly's target audience. They're really hitting the right influencers. I didn't think that the Sway House was still a thing, and I also didn't know that the Sway House made investments. Absolutely not. But
avid boxing follower.
Kind of just outed yourself there.
So I didn't know that was still a thing, but they're definitely hitting the right demographic. I wonder, are these influencers, Zach, going to become ambassadors for Lolly? I did see that they were going to be giving out some kind of reward to their followers. How's that going to work? Is it like a Tom Brady thing with FTX?
I don't know. Could be. They did this before with Michelle Phan, who's a big she's like a makeup influencer. So she invested it in an earlier round, and also sort of was like, "Hey, you got like all my followers. You should check out this thing, Lolly. It's really cool. It's a great way to sort of like introduce yourself to the crypto world." Yeah, Ashton Kutcher also invested in previous rounds. So I think that is sort of the playbook. It's like, okay, you can invest in this round, you get some access to upside of our company, and the more you also let your followers know that this is a thing that you like, the more those people may ultimately experiment with this thing. So it's sort of like, I don't know what the metaphor would be, but it's sort of like, activating the followers of these influential people. So I don't know I don't know the details of what's in store there, but I would imagine that there'd be some of that going down the road. Will, what's up?
Really quick, in terms of just like brand management. Wow.
Go quick. Say it. Wow. Say both.
Rude. In terms of like brand management, it makes sense for them just to be Bitcoin only and then kind of get these sponsors involved. I think we see with like FTX and a lot of other firms that's like really broad, reaching out to a lot of different markets. Lolly's like super focused on one aspect and one angle, and they're not getting involved with like all these shit coins out there that I think a lot of influencers and celebrities get confused with, and then they end up in prison, or not in prison, but in court. So I think from a brand management perspective, that makes sense.
I will say, like, Lolly does also need to improve. Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
It was Jen.
Everyone jumping on Jen today.
Goodness.
So sorry, Ben.
Jen, take the mic.
I was just going to add, I don't know that their branding really appeals to gamers. I'm interested to see their marketing strategy moving forward. I don't know if Ben, you take it over, and I don't know, do you think that their branding appeals to gamers? Because I sure don't.
I think gamers are into making money. I think influencers are into making money. And I think that they are really able to activate their kind of cults of personality. We see this with like Elon. We see how crypto is kind of susceptible to that activation. That being said, I think this is just another version of like going direct to an audience, right? Like influencers pitch this, activate their fans, Zach, as you were saying. But one thing I do think is like Lolly does need to improve its international reach. Like very few of the sites that they kind of focus on are like available outside the US apparently. And so I think that could be one angle to continue looking at here, is whether they just double down on the US market, which kind of seems to be the case with the influencers they're bringing in here, or they look at a like larger international reach at some point in the future.
All right, that was good times. Let's wrap it. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk about global regulators saying that encryption is bad. And we're going to talk about that. And I'm sure it's going to invoke some strong opinions. So stick with us. It's The Hash. We'll talk to you in a little bit. It's going to be fun. See you soon.
CoinDesk indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. The CoinDesk DeFi Index is our latest product and provides insight and exposure into decentralized finance. Our indexes are key for investors looking to access and understand crypto markets.
The CoinDesk DeFi Index is the best tool for a diversified approach to this compelling new category of digital assets.
The CoinDesk DeFi Index, measuring the investable DeFi market.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Hash. I'm going to dive into some huge news from Dash. So they have launched this new payment network called Dash Direct. It's non-custodial, user-controlled retail app, and it's accepted at 155,000 merchants. You can save a ton of money using Dash and just paying for ordinary things that you would usually buy. It's super interesting. You can get discounts of up to 12%. They have all kinds of people participating in this program: American Eagle, Best Buy, Chili's, Chipotle, CVS, DoorDash, GameStop. I mean, it's huge. The reach is awesome. So if you're someone who uses crypto every day, this is probably going to be a great asset to your life. I've definitely seen just amazing positive reviews from people in the community I know who live on crypto, who are already using this and who just are very grateful that it exists. I'm going to throw this straight to Will, because I know he has some thoughts, and then we're going to put on the fighting gloves and we're going to hash this out. Will, what you got?
What do I got? I got a lot in the bag. I'm not a fan of any coin out there that has decided to put itself into the position to attack Bitcoin purposely, and that's what they just continue to do. So I don't like anything to do with Dash. I'm just like going to say it out there.
But continue to walk me through that.
How are they
not sure I
attacking Bitcoin
understand.
directly, Will?
By providing useful
I'm going to moderate
competing
this.
services?
We can go through it. The original team, large pre-mine, held onto the coins. Now they add a lot of integrations for payments. Their money holdings just go up because of that. It's just fiat, but privatized. It's no different. This is totally wrong.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is not at all fiat. This is a decentralized network, Will. So I'm going to push back on this. I'm someone, unlike you, I'm someone who actually uses crypto. So as someone who uses it in the real world, I'm not looking for tribalism or like what the original team did. Like I'm looking for what's useful in my life right now. What gives me back financial sovereignty? Right, me too. But I'm looking for financial sovereignty, something where I can control my money. Now, I can either use my credit card like you do and give the banks all of my financial data and keep empowering the system that I hope to take down one day, or I can say, well, I'm going to use something that's private. I'm going to use something that gives me back control over my money, where I don't need to ask a third party to give me permission to access my own funds. This is something that does that. So people who scoff at it, they're the people who are there using their bank accounts. They're empowering this existing system. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of saying, well, one day, you know, we're gonna hedge our bets and one day this thing will become useful. No, guys, this day is today. Our privacy is being violated. Our money is being controlled. Our decisions are being censored. And we can actually take back control of that by using other currencies. Heaven forbid you use the taboo word and start to talk about altcoins. But to be honest, like the people who are using this every day find it incredibly useful, regardless of whatever story people say about it, pitting against cryptocurrencies. Yes, let's pit cryptocurrencies against each other. Let's have the best one win. Let's have competition out there. Honestly, Dash is doing a great job by bringing cryptocurrency utility to users, and I'm a huge fan.
I think this kind of shows like the big difference between Bitcoin and the rest of the currencies out there. Bitcoin is trying to operate as like a sovereign asset of value, and then it'll become a payment network.
It didn't
all
used
these other currencies
it used to be about the payment networks, right?
They're trying to be payment network. Dash is no different than fiat. You price everything in fiat still. You're just using the Dash network. You're still pricing in the same way. Bitcoin's trying to undergird all of it.
Who cares? I can price it in whatever I want and I still have financial sovereignty. So let me price it in whatever's most useful to price it. Let me use whatever systems are out there as long as I get financial sovereignty. Well, I earn my Dash. I get donated Dash. You know, there are lots of different ways I won't disclose on air, but you know, there are so many ways to get cryptocurrency.
I'm a fan of using crypto. You should use crypto whenever you can.
Shut down all the things
but savings
that have
is
utility.
Also one way of using your crypto. No, I'm not a fan of Dash.
I agree. 100% savings is a use for crypto. It's not the only use. And people who are like Bitcoin maximalists seem to think it is the only use. I'm sorry, but there are people out there who want control of their money in all areas of their life, not just for their savings. Like my savings are great, but I believe in the utility and the future of Bitcoin. You know, I'm going to be using my Bitcoin now. You know, I'm going to be having most of my money in Bitcoin. I'm not going to be having my savings in fiat.
You're establishing bad practices within cryptocurrency by using a coin that has known faults.
I use a coin that gives me great utility that's accepted at all the places where I want to do my day-to-day purchases.
The dollar has
Try and find me a place. Yeah, and it's tracked and it's monitored and it's censored and it's completely controlled by third parties. That's exactly the system that the cypherpunks wanted to take down, Will. And you're out there pretending to be part of this and you're clouded. You've got blinders on and you don't realize you're feeding into the same narrative that is trying to crush payments in cryptocurrency. It's terrible.
Dash and the dollar are almost equivalent. There's just a few differences.
Great. Yeah.
This is good.
They're not equivalent at all because one of them is essentially controlled by a central bank.
Discount
a central bank, Will, that it completely controls the money supply that's not elected. I elect to choose Dash. You know, I like to choose many other currencies too. Dash is just one of the many that I use. But now it just, you know, picked up a whole bunch of utility through this program, which I'm very excited about. But this, to equate central banks to a private money is crazy to me. This is not some shadowy
it's a central company
cabal
versus a central bank.
Well, first of all, it's not a central company. You don't know what you're talking about because you clearly don't know who runs Dash masternodes. It's a very decentralized system. So you should maybe do some more research into that.
Get set up? How did
Well, who
Dash
cares
Direct
how it
get
got
set
set?
up?
How did Shapeshift get set up? But they're going completely decentralized. Things evolve, Will. They change to buy into this narrative that whatever happened years ago, that's the way it's always going to be because it started out from a single person or a single company is ridiculous. We're here to create decentralized systems. We're here to create networks with other people and build teams and then build more, evolve those teams, grow them, decentralize them. I think that this is a great product. And what's more is I can save a ton of money. Not only do I get back financial sovereignty and I don't have to ask a middleman like, hey, PayPal, will you give me permission to get my money out today? I just use it and I save like 12%. I'm going to be saving a ton of money while you're off, using your fiat credit card, getting everything tracked. JP Morgan's going to be hacked again. Your details are going to be out there on the web and I'm going to be here being so happy with myself. Well, I'm going to be so happy with myself. Okay.
Who won this debate? Let us know in the comments below.
It doesn't matter. Anytime I attack a coin,
subscribe.
the last time I attacked, I forget, Bitcoin Cash, I got trolled all over Reddit. It was not fun.
Yes, because you don't know what you're talking about, Will. You don't use these
Bitcoin
coins. You don't
Cash
use
and
this
Dash
crypto
are like
in their life.
equivalently evil. Okay, what's
We
All
love
right,
you
we're gonna
both.
change
We
track.
appreciate you both. Will, we appreciate you. Naomi, we appreciate you. It's awesome.
Well, I do love you, but this side of you disappoints me.
You got it.
Let's talk about encryption, something we can all agree on, I think. So Politico published an op-ed from a few top bigwigs in the regulatory community, including Europol Executive Director and the District Attorney of New York, Cyrus R. Vance Jr., talking about why encryption should not be the standard among like tech stacks, and particularly how cell phones should have backdoor access for regulators. Quote from the op-ed, organized crime, terrorists, and child abusers are all drawn to devices and communications platforms that are designed to be technically impossible for law enforcement to lawfully access. And as law enforcement, we are losing the ability to keep people safe. So basically a call for backdoors to encryption, which of course all the apps and applications and crypto use, and a lot of the payment systems out there use, and a lot of the messaging applications out there also use, your Signals and your Telegrams of the world. Naomi, I'm going to give this one to you. I think we can really heal our relationship right now with this topic.
All right, I'm healing, but I'm
so
like,
nice.
this article just charges me. Like, I mean, they're using so many emotionally charged terms to pull on the heartstrings of people to get their awful, regulation agenda through. And it drives me crazy. Like, they hit all the points. They're protecting the children and they're, attacking the agenda of big tech and they're, stopping terrorists and all this stuff. I mean, these agencies pretend that they're going dark. And the truth is that it's the complete opposite. These agencies have never had more access to data than they have at this moment. Now, the data they have access to is blanket surveillance and they want more of it. They have mass surveillance apparatuses set up all over the world where they collect information from all of us. It doesn't matter whether we've committed a crime or whether we haven't. And it's absolutely crazy. First of all, because it's ineffective, right? When you are trying to find a needle in a haystack, there is no way that all of this information is helping them. The way that they find criminals is when they have, tip-offs and leads and they have specific people. If they have specific people, there are ways they could specifically target those people. They don't need to break encryption on every device. They literally, we just had this Trojan horse global, Ben can probably talk more about that, but they created these basically honeypot encrypted devices, handed them out to targeted people who were actually criminals, did an amazing job, putting all these people away. That's the targeted stuff that I would expect, not this rhetoric about saving children when all they're doing is undermining the privacy and security of all citizens. When they say we're going to protect the nation, what they mean is the nation state, not the nation's citizens. And so we really need to be mindful of that. But I'm going to throw this to Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just really interesting. Like, this reads more as like a press release and not even an op-ed. It just this is a full frontal, saying we need regulatory access to encryption, or we need regulated encryption, not unregulated encryption, which again, I don't even know what that really means. Like, there's a variety of ways you could maybe go about this, but this just seems to be like a full-on salvo at that. I think what this really gets at is sort of like the hierarchy of information and who should be privy to that information. I think the thing that they're really laying out here is they're saying, like, we need to have access to to all information when we want it. I mean, Cyrus Vance is the DA of New York City, or Manhattan, excuse me. And the NYPD is basically like a quasi-military force in terms of the tech and apparatus and like surveillance tools that they're able to operate with a huge amount of discretion. And not only that, but they also operate, predictive policing services in a variety of different ways. And there's been numerous outlets that have reported on all the different facial recognition stuff they do at the same time. I think that encryption is particularly a tech tool that can stand up to some of these dynamics, and one that shouldn't be sort of chopped off at the knees just because one entity, this being the state, thinks that they need to have access to all the information that they want when they want it. I think there is a realm where things need to be private. I think, Hannah Arendt's like quoted this, and it's been quoted writ large, but like we need private areas with which we can contemplate things and share and talk and communicate so that we can grow as people. And I think this really like looks past that and invokes a lot of very scary terms and very real things that need to be considered. But this, op-ed is light on details. It just calls for regulated encryption, and that doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah, I think the humanistic note, right? Like encryption, just stepping back, like encryption is about human values, right? Like we exist pre-digitally in spaces where we can talk, where that talk isn't recorded for perpetuity, for people to spy on those conversations. Bitcoin is rooted in that same ethos, right? Bitcoin was supposed to be like digital dollars that you could use with people without that transaction necessarily being stored in a centralized repository. So the idea of that encryption is some sort of like tech boogeyman kind of rubs me the wrong way, because it's a very human thing, right? We need that space to express in confidence. It's something that's very critical to societies. And as our society moves full force online, there needs to be space to protect that, and encryption is a way to do that. So, yeah, good stuff.
Encryption.
Dan, what are your thoughts here?
You guys kind of covered everything I was going to say. I'll just move us on to the next topic. Okay, we're going into Robinhood now. So the trading platform is going public this week, and they are reportedly testing a feature to protect investors from volatility. So the feature was discovered in the code for a beta test version of the iPhone app, according to a report from Bloomberg. The feature allegedly being developed is called Price Volatility Protection, which is supposed to reduce the impact of price volatility on users by sometimes skipping recurring orders or buying less than a chosen amount. They're also testing an option called Roundup Investments that will allow users to purchase stocks with spare change. So this is one of two stories that have come out this week as Robinhood prepares to go public. Naomi, I'm going to throw this down to you. Do you think that users need these restrictions when interacting with crypto on the app?
I mean, it's such an interesting question. So it's very clear that Robinhood is gearing up for they're going public this week. So they're doing all these things to appease regulators. So I do think that their mindset is very much in terms of what do regulators want, not what do consumers want. I'm not sure that they even asked consumers, do you want trainer wheels on your user experience, Although we have seen in the past, like it's a little bit of a gray area, because we have seen in the past a lot of people using this platform who really don't understand what they're talking about. But I do seem to like take issue with this idea that users will put in their order and then the app will decide, well, we think that's not really what you wanted. We'll make a better decision for you and just going to do it. I would be very interested in an education platform that kind of helps people understand exactly how the tools work, but kind of superseding their decision-making process and saying, well, this is actually what you had in mind. Do this instead. That irks me a little and very much doesn't seem like it's in the consumer's best interest, but does seem like it's going to appease regulators. But Ben, I'll throw this to you. What are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, yeah, I think this is in Robinhood consumers' best interest. I think that the people that would be most sort of like aggressively against this are like high frequency traders that are trying to capitalize on that volatility. And they're going to be, trading in coins that are not available on Robinhood, and they're going to be trying to do it way faster. I think that if you're using Robinhood to buy crypto or invest in crypto, then you aren't really interested in like the ethos of crypto in a lot of different ways. You're interested in trying to make money. And so in that sense, you're seeing people just park money. You're seeing not a ton of people like trading in and out of coins or stocks or anything like really quickly. And so from that perspective, I think that it might make sense. But I also think that the people that are on Robinhood aren't going to be too upset by this. They're more interested in being protected from the volatility than actually sort of, capitalizing on these really, sort of seismic gains from minute to minute and day to day. So, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think it is speaking to the audience that's already on the app in a lot of ways.
Just to jump in here with the apple and oranges comparison, it's interesting to see Robinhood making these like very slight adjustments to customer experience to kind of protect them, and then look over at the DeFi space and see what's happening. Yesterday, or I think maybe it was even this morning, I saw a tweet about a new time-weighted oracle for market making, which, like in a nutshell, is a way for creating an autonomous market without anyone or any human being involved with it, and then being able to protect the users of it by adding like an oracle that inputs time differently depending on like a lot of different criteria. That little nerdy blog post I just gave you right there is just to say that there's a lot of innovation happening in DeFi right now, and I'm wondering when that eats traditional finance's lunch, including these neobanks like Robinhood. Like, is that going to happen, and will it happen? I think at some point it will. It's just interesting to see like the very large differences between the two spaces right now.
I just wanted to respond to Naomi, what you were saying. As part of the 75, I believe it was, $1 million settlement that we saw Robinhood involved in, I think it was about a month ago, they did commit to more education on the platform. And in terms of regulation, the other story I was speaking about at the top of this segment was that CEO Vlad Tenev is under investigation by FINRA for failing to register with the regulator, which is interesting because they're going public this week. And Robinhood's comment was that they believe that Tenev is exempt from FINRA registration because he's the CEO of Robinhood Markets, which is the holding company, not the trading subsidiary. So I thought that was an interesting comment. Not sure why they would make that comment as they go public. Zach, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, it was in the documents, and then they had to say something. So that's that. I think. I think like if you think about this in the context of that like 19-year-old who committed suicide after thinking that he lost a bunch of money on Robinhood, then it becomes a really interesting conversation, right? Like, training wheels may be needed for some folks. And, I think crypto exchanges, which are basically casinos for buying various coins, are going to face these things too when they get to a certain scale, right? There's going to be like an FTX suicide or like a Blockfolio suicide that will captivate mainstream attention. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, like how do you make these things sticky, but not so sticky to the point where you are creating unhealthy habits for your user base. And I think that is actually kind of like an interesting conversation that's worth having. Whether this is the answer, I agree. It does kind of feel weird that like it wouldn't let you do what you really want to do in the app. It's going to be interesting to see what the right balance is in protecting consumers while also giving them the freedom they want to trade what they want and how they want. So I don't know, interesting conversation, and the whole Robinhood IPO thing is going to be interesting. But Ben, what do you got?
I mean, what's also unhealthy? Late stage capitalism, but that's sort of what I'm just going to tap it off with.
Nice close.
Really? You end it like that for no time for pushback?
Mic drop.
All right, we got to wrap
that's
this.
it. That was it. That was the end of the show. Points to Ben for getting that one in. We are going to wrap it here. We'll be back tomorrow for the Thursday show. I'm Zach. We got Naomi. We got Jen. We got Ben. We got Will. We all love each other. We like to have fun conversations. We'll see you tomorrow. Stick with us on CoinDesk. All about Bitcoin. 3 p.m. Eastern. Check that out on CoinDesk TV. And we will be back tomorrow. See everybody. Thanks so much.
Love you, Will.
Love you too.